Welcome back to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Your host, Tom Keenan, coming at you today with Mr. Mike Moll. Got a good guest lined up. Excited for this one, guys. Mike is a sales trainer. And, this is an area where we kind of just, I don't know, we touch on it every so often around here, but we really don't dive in too deep, and we haven't in quite a while. Mike is a good dude, originally coming from Canada, and has made the transition from a northern border ally of the U.S. to a southern border. I don't know if I want to use the word ally in today's current climate, because that's an area where the podcast that handle that stuff, and I'm not looking to poke that bear today. But anyways, sir, grateful to have you here. Grateful to jump in and just have some authentic, open, direct conversation with you. And welcome to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I think, in the sales spectrum of it, it is one of those things where not enough time is spent. Because we're, most of the people I talk to, and some of the people that listen to the show are in that, that solopreneur space that, I wear all the hats, I do everything. And it always feels like there's more stuff in line before improving the sales process. But we can dive in and out of that a little today.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to. There's some rules that I go by when it comes to small business or business overall, right? The biggest one is without no sales, there is no business. And I had a couple that lead up to that too. Without marketing, there is no sales. Just some adages that I live by within my own businesses, and also stuff that I help clients with. So here we are. We're two guys who help other business owners kind of dial things in. I'm definitely more on the operations side, the overall, hey, it's a 30,000-foot organic view. Let's help dial in your operations. And that could be a sales process. That could be follow-up. It could be marketing. It could be financial. It could be, you name it. We're going to dive in there. But what you're doing in your company, your agency, is you guys are focused on the sales side of it. Pretty cool. Let's kick this thing off. And we kind of just chatted about this before we got going here. But what are you seeing are the biggest failures of small business owners when it comes to sales? What are they not doing that they should be doing no matter what?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, how you have that. I love the way that you just said that. You don't have sales without marketing. You don't have, and there's always that one thing before. I think where people fall short is they don't develop a great product or service. I think that's the number one thing. You don't have a sales problem or a leads problem or a marketing problem when your solution is great and everybody that buys from you wants to talk about it to other people, right? And so I think when I look back and I go in, there's things in the sales conversation that need to be improved. Lack of framework. You talk too damn much. There's so many little things there. But I think the number one thing I would encourage people to think about is, how do I make my product or service amazing to the point where, once someone's in the door, I don't have to keep selling them? Because that's what happens with a lot of business services. We sell this dream, we don't deliver the nightmare, but it's somewhere in between, right? We promise the dream and we come in, kind of in the middle of a dream and a nightmare, and it's fine. And people will tolerate it for a certain amount of time. But when you have a mediocre service offering, what happens is you have to sell it over and over and over and over again just to keep that client, regardless of new clients. So, how do you make a great customer experience? How do you deliver the transformation that you promised in a way that makes the customer super happy? That's actually a big part of the battle of sales, because if you're constantly fighting to bring in new customers because your customers are churning out the back door, you're not building anything. You're just surviving, right?
That's surviving. Yeah, for sure. I've personally faced that, in real. And I think if you haven't faced that at some point in time as a business owner, you're going to.
Yeah. Listen, I ran a Google ads agency for 11 years, kind of leading into what I'm doing now. And the first 5 years, our product was terrible. And we were constantly changing it, constantly trying to add stuff without the right support, because we felt like we needed to, we do this type of ad. Okay, we got to do ads for these 7 different platforms because that's what an agency does. We had this thing in our mind of we have to keep going wider and wider and wider. And what I discovered after about 5 years in is no, we need depth, incredible depth of the one thing that we deliver so that people that come to us for that thing love us for that thing. And so that's what we built in the back end of our back half of the agency time.
Yeah. So give me a better give me some more insight into what depth is in your perspective, your opinion here. Because when I hear that from you, it's like, okay, these dudes just went in and focused on Google ads and got to be the best at Google ads and had multiple versions of ad sets for whatever the industry was that your agency was serving. Is that pretty much how it went, or was it a bit different?
Yeah, I mean, so pretty much, yeah. But what I mean in terms of width, this happens in two different places. One within your product, and two within your marketing. And it's typically a big mistake. So in your marketing, there's usually one channel that's driving 80 to 90% of your revenue. But
Mhm.
this shiny object syndrome, this my friend showed me this YouTube video, or I watched this TikTok thing, and instead of improving or increasing the efficiency of the one thing that you're doing, you are like, we got to do all this other stuff because everybody else is doing these things. Or I heard that, organic TikTok was the next thing. So we're going to drop all the energy we're putting into maximizing our Facebook ads, whatever it is, that's the current thing. And I think it happens
Yeah.
with the product too. People think, oh, in order to make more money, I need to add more things to what I do. I need to expand the offering. I need to add, we need to do ads on more platforms. Now we got to get into websites. Now we got to get into social media content. And the truth is, with that, the width instead of depth, it's like if you get amazing at one thing and learn how to sell, learn how to speak about your thing with a high level of
Mhm.
confidence and assigning it the right level of value, you could actually just double or triple your price doing the exact same thing and have a bunch of happy customers.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
this weird thing where we always think we need to be doing something different or
Mhm.
more rather than just dialing in the thing that's making us money now.
Dude, I love it. I'm gonna put a different spin on it. So I come from service-based world, right? And I was a car auto installer for many years, working on custom cars, building things. And I found myself in my first business in this situation. I was an extremely talented and educated and trained technician. Like I went to trade school for it, the whole nine yards. I had years of experience doing it. And what I was capable of completing, building, whatever you want to call it, was leaps and bounds above the people who I had brought into my company. Shit. And cool, like yeah, like the leader probably should be the brainchild of the operation. The problem was everything that we did was a one-off custom. So how do I train? How do I build systems and processes for something that changes every time a new car comes into the shop? To complicate it in the automotive industry, not only is it hey, it's a different client, it's a different product that we're installing in this vehicle. It's a different year, make, and model vehicle because they're all changed. So putting systems and process together was very difficult. And if I had to do it all over again, I would definitely choose a specialty, right? Become the expert in this brand vehicle, become the expert in subwoofer enclosure building, become the expert in insert whatever the fancy thing is you're going to be doing over here. And yes, you're not going to have all of this business that comes in, but I've also, over the course of my career, I've learned that not all business is good business, which I'm sure you'll agree with.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And I think, where a lot of people get stuck is when you made up the service. So I thought I was going to do this agency and then it was going to look like this. Here's how we were going to deliver it. The challenge with most people that I see anyway, and through my conversations and some mentorship that we do, it's like people get attached to it being their baby. I made this thing. I came up with the idea. People bought it from me. It's like you've put this thing out into the world, and sometimes it's hard to let go when it's not efficient, right? The similar to what you had, you're like, I'm known as
Yeah.
the guy, the custom guy, and that's probably a
Mhm.
great feeling because people are seeking you out. You're building a name, you're building a whatever. But if your business can't run efficiently and profitably and without you in it 100% of the time, then
Yep.
it's not really the ideal business for most people.
No, it's not. And that right there to me is cost fallacy. And one of the biggest prime examples, and look, I can tell by the gray in your beard, you're probably around my age because I got a lot of that going on too. When I was a kid, man, I grew up in Long Island, New York, about 12 miles from JFK Airport, big international airport that most people know about. And we used to hear, commercial planes fly over my house every couple of minutes, being that close. And every so often, we'd hear the loud rumble. And that loud rumble was the Concorde. And I don't know if you remember the Concorde. It was Air France and it was British Airways were the only two airlines who flew it. And they basically had a joint venture going on between those two countries. And they flew this supersonic passenger jet from the east coast of New York over to England, or I should say Europe, several times a day. And they kept dumping money into this thing to make this thing better and better and better and better, and it wouldn't go anywhere, right? And eventually, they had to throw the towel in and say, "Hey, this just isn't profitable." And I think that's a really hard, painful lesson that a lot of small business owners have to go through on obviously a smaller scale. We're not talking to international country here who've got millions, billions of dollars invested into the aerospace industry. But it's painful. This thing that you've created, your bait that you're all bought in on. Meanwhile, most other people around you aren't, and you have to now go and say, "Hey, I'm willing to give this up in order to get better or focus on the thing that is truly driving us forward." And the thing I want to touch on here too, you mentioned before, 80% of your sales or your revenue is coming in traditionally from one channel, right? You mentioned Google, you mentioned Facebook. Cool. That's a prime example of the 80/20 rule in effect, right? So how can we apply the 80/20 rule here to basically analyze our business, analyze our operations, analyze our sales, so it tells us specifically the areas to focus on and not focus on? Are you doing anything like that with your clients where you're kind of just deciphering the best area of or the best modality to push on?
Yeah, usually when I start with someone who's like, okay, so our company does these 3 or 4 things. We have these 10 marketing channels. Cool. How big's your team? Just me and a VA. Okay. How are you guys managing 10 marketing channels? Like, you know what I mean? Like the team that is required to efficiently manage this many channels is impossible. So what we do is we start off in our like early assessment, we start off with kind of a marketing matrix, which is write down all the channels that you are currently marketing on in the next. So this is in a table. So across the top is all the channels that you're marketing on. The next one is how much time do you put into this marketing thing? So organic social media, if you're filming videos, if you're editing, if you're whatever. So that's your time input for each one. And then the
Mhm.
next line is your dollar input. So are you paying somebody to do it? Are you paying for a service? Are you buying ads? That's cost of if you're doing paid ads. So what is the time input? What is the money input? This is very important for small business solopreneurs. What is your level of enjoyment out of 10 for each channel? Some people love creating content for social media. I love making these videos, cutting them up into reels, splashing the pictures in behind. Some people find it to be a nightmare. Some people like going into Google Ads and being analytical and playing with, oh, if I just move this, can I change that number? They actually enjoy it. So your enjoyment of the marketing channel and then your return on investment of the channel. And what typically happens is the most time sucking exercises are the least favorite and the least profitable marketing channels. But
Mhm.
if you don't take the time to actually break those pieces down, how much time am I spending on this? How much money am I spending on this? Do I enjoy it? And then most people aren't measuring the return on investment, but once you
Mhm.
get to that measurement, that's a really great place to start to say, okay, there's this thing that's costing me time and money that I hate, that's not making me money. Cool. Like we know what to get rid of first. So simplifying, getting it down to, 1 or 2 channels, that the ones that are seemingly efficient. So that's step one.
Mhm.
Step two is you need to put in measurement sticks across every step of your customer journey. And this is something that is neglected substantially by and I've worked as a fractional CMO inside of, 19, $20 million companies. They weren't even
Sure.
measuring stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
like the lack of measurement in business is crazy. But if I think about a customer journey where, we run an ad, and it goes to a landing page where you're, pitching them on a masterclass, a free masterclass. Cool. Then once they get, they opt in, are they watching it? And then there's emails that go out. Are they going to check out the sales page of the course? Are they checking out of that sales page? So there's 5 really important steps of a funnel. There should be a measurement and a goal for every single step of that thing. Because if you don't, and if you just say, well, we sent this many people to a website with ads and we only made this many sales. So you take the first part of the process and the last part of the process, and you say, well, I spent this much, but I didn't get the return. At that point, you're thinking, well, my marketing doesn't work, or the ads or the targeting or whatever the case may be. Well, maybe those ads are great. Maybe people that click on those ads are opting into the page at a high rate. Maybe nobody's opening your emails. And so if we don't measure each step, it's very easy for us to say as a whole idea, like this marketing's not working, when it could just be some part of your sales process or your funnel isn't working. And so it's really important to put measuring sticks at each step, to see where it's broken, instead of just dollars in, dollars not coming back. We abandon the whole
Yeah.
project because that's a disaster.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you're talking about KPIs at some level. What are a couple of important ones that you think are non-negotiable for any business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, it's got to depend on your sales cycle, your funnel. If you're selling something very expensive, you are going to have to touch base with a person more. They're going to have to see you more to make that decision to go with you. If you're selling a $37, whatever widget or thing on an e-commerce store, your journey is a little bit less. This is how I think about it. Whenever somebody is moving from platform to platform, there's a measuring stick. When they're moving from one place to another, and then you are giving them an action to take, there's a call to action. You are asking them to take a step to do something. There needs to be a measurement on that as well. And as long as you do that, as long as you say, okay, there's 5 steps to someone buying from me. They go from the ad to an opt-in page, to watching a training video, to an email sequence, to a sales page, to a purchase. That's typical for informational products, right? There's 6 measuring sticks now. Now we know that there's 6 things that we need to pay attention to. And, there's a lot of variables, like if you get traffic to that page from a paid ad versus someone who's been following you on social media, obviously the person who's familiar with you is going to opt in at a higher rate than the person who just sees your ad on Facebook for the first time. So obviously there's variability within this. But what we tend to do is we try and use benchmarks, and you can kind of find the stuff online for your own particular thing. What is the average opt-in for a checklist lead magnet? You can ask ChatGPT. It'll kind of give you an idea. Again, too many variables to kind of just actively predict it on the pod. But if you do that, at least gives you some KPI, some benchmark to go after.
Yeah. I also think too, if a small business is using a halfway decent CRM marketing platform, whatever, insert whatever you want to call it, we'll call it software. Okay. A lot of those metrics are going to be readily available without them having to go build some custom widget or hire someone to go build some stuff, or head over to Fiverr and have some full-blown Excel nerd build you this monstrous spreadsheet where you need an MBA in order to operate the damn thing. So there's definitely ways out there to do it. And do you have any, let's just dive in here, do you get more on the tech nerdy side? Are there any software platforms that you recommend to your clients that you yourself wouldn't live without?
I only use it for about 60% of its functionality, but I really like Kajabi. So it's an online course platform. I actually only have one course. The other products are not courses, but what I found with it is the friction of sending somebody a contract on one platform that needs to be digitally signed, and then an invoice from another platform that needs to be paid, creates friction and sometimes drop off. So what we do is we have checkout pages that are the terms and conditions on the left and the payment section on the right. And instead of saying the customer's name on this particular date, we just say, we now define the client as the purchaser. and then the date of the contract as the date of the purchase. And so now I could just send out
Yep.
one link where it has all my T's and the C's, all my pricing, and they could just put in the credit card, and it kind of goes very quickly from there.
Mhm.
So I really like that. I also like the fact that you can do, your main website and landing pages
Mhm.
and a blog kind of all in one ecosystem. To be honest, I don't trust their analytics. Their analytics suck. We have Google Analytics and Tag Manager installed, but that's really,
Sure.
really good. Notion is a really
Mhm.
great platform. It's incredibly flexible and it plays nice with a lot of other tools. So we use that for our CRM. It allows us
Mhm.
to track when a lead comes in. We tag them with where the person came from, what their interest is, et cetera, et cetera. But we can then give them over to ConvertKit if we have an email campaign. We can give them over to Kajabi if they have to go sign up for the program, et cetera, et cetera. So Notion is incredibly flexible, and the automated task functionality within it can actually it actually replaced 2 or 3 programs for us. So that's been really great.
Mhm. Yeah, I love it. I'm familiar with Kajabi. I run some platforms on there for a while, and a company that I moved to Texas in 2020 from New York. Came down here and started working for a company that had a bunch of stuff in place already. They were doing several million dollars a year, and they ran all of their online courses and whatnot through Kajabi. So I got very familiar very quickly with that platform, and it's very capable. From a course builder, I mean, still to this day, it's almost the industry standard. If you ask me, it's just set up and it works well. I've since moved on and a different program now, but I hear Kajabi and I'm like, cool, you got something good and solid that's in place. Good for you, man.
Yeah, and
Love it.
a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's expensive. It's $200 a month." But here's the thing, I was using lead pages before for landing pages, and then tried to
Mhm.
build my site on it, and then but there's no blog. And so now we're 85 bucks just for a landing page, and then we need another tool for something else and another tool for something else. Granted, I actually don't use it for its email marketing. The deliverability of the Kajabi's platform is actually crap. So I send
Right.
everything over to ConvertKit. But yeah, as close to an all-in-one as you can get, it's pretty great. And here's what I would say to anybody listening: if you think you're going to find one platform that is going to run your entire business, you're out of your mind. It does not exist. it, It'd be nice, but a lot of these
Mhm.
platforms got popular because of one thing, and then they started appending other things on, but it wasn't built with those full functions in mind. And so yes, it sucks, to have 7 different platforms that, your total tech bill's $1,000 a month. But if you
Mhm.
find something that is the most functional version for what you need, there's things like Make and there's things like Zapier that can make them talk to each other and kind of be cohesive. I find that the all-in-ones or the self-proclaimed all-in-ones always have some massive, massive gap that creates friction.
Yeah, it's just let's just open the can of worms while we're at it. There is no perfect software out there. I don't care what industry you're in. Um, and the days of going and building yourself a custom software for your industry, it's a lot harder than people think it is. It's constant maintenance and updating and so on and so forth. Um, I'm a firm believer that if you can find a platform where you're basically getting 60% of all of your needs and wants accomplished in that platform, will move forward. Because otherwise you're going to spend too much time looking for something. You're looking for that needle in a haystack, that unicorn that makes sense. And like you said, you got nerdy tools like Zapier and Make, which allow you to connect to one system or one software to the next without having to learn crazy code and whatnot. That stuff's been done by some really smart people who are really good with computers and writing code. And now it's you click a couple of buttons, click a couple of links, and all of a sudden you've got, platform A connected to platform B, and they can sync with each other, which is beautiful. So I think it's stuff that we work on with our clients as well, and it sounds like you guys are pretty involved in there. So here's a question I have for you before I make an assumption here. Are you and your team going in there and helping your client set up these systems on the back end in order to help their sales process?
No, only because I am a very, very lean, very, very, I don't like to add a lot of bulk onto what I do.
Mhm.
I like to work 25 hours a week. I like to have a very small team. I like to travel full. I've been traveling full time for 4 years. So for me, no. Now, if I've got it built, we have templated it and we have it available to them. So if they want to use the way that we're using it or tweak it slightly, great. I generally keep some outside contractors or people that I rely on and trust available. So I have an automation guy, I have a custom Notion guy, I have these people in my network, but I try and stay out of it being in my scope of work. For me, I overcommitted deliverable or like the delivery of a service for a really long time and really actually for a long time undercharged for it. We would do
Mhm.
so much and try and take on everything. And now even with like the ads business, if a company's not ready, like if their infrastructure is not ready for their leads to double tomorrow, if everything breaks, if the leads double tomorrow, we just tell them, hey, come back to us once you've got it fixed. I don't have any desire to like be the fixer of those things for people. I went down that route, but that's that whole depth versus width, right? It's like I can
Yeah.
come on and give you great guidance, advice, connect you with people, and if that's valuable enough, let's rock. Otherwise, I'm not going to add capabilities and expense and bandwidth of team
Mhm.
uh, to try and program stuff. For me, it's not worthwhile.
Yeah, no, dude, I totally get it. And there's just so many similarities between what you're doing and what I'm doing. I don't want to be an agency. Do I have the ability? Does the team have the ability to go in there and build some cool shit for you? Sure, we do, because we do it for ourselves. But that's not what I'm here. That's not where that's not how I can my cost best. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like there's companies out there who specialize in that and that only. You're better off going and working with them. We get you set up. If you want to self-implement, if you want a handheld and you want some guidance in implementing your stuff, can we help you out? Sure, we can. Right. But I don't want to be the agency who's taking on, hey, this is going to be a $30,000 bill and we're going to build your stuff. And now I'm married to you for the next 5 years every time one of your emails isn't delivered or an automation doesn't work. Like, like
Yeah.
don't want to do that.
No.
No,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think for me, the scaling back, it's interesting. Scaling back while raising the price simultaneously has been this crazy unlock where you have. I mean, there's a lot of people on the internet who are full of it and can't actually help. I mean, we see the coaching and consulting industry is just riddled with
Yes. I love it.
horrible talent. But I will say that one thing that I actually, this was even bigger of an idea in my mind as of a few weeks ago. I was at a mastermind in Vegas, and the guy that was leading it challenged me. He says, why do you do coaching calls? I said, well, that's like how coaching works, right? Like twice a month, we jump on for an hour, we da 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 da. But he goes, okay, well, how else do you deliver your advice and how else do you help? Well, I have this video app so people can ask me questions on the video app, and it's just for those, like, just for back and forth. And then people can send me a Loom video, or if they want me to review a website, I'll record a quick Loom and send it off to them. And he challenged me to say, you add these meetings because that's what you think coaching is. That's the model you see other people take, and da, 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 da. And he goes, well, what if you just never gave people time on the calendar? They could asynchronously reach out and ask you questions, and you would
Mhm.
respond. But why are you jumping on for that long? And I thought a lot about it, and I actually interviewed 4 of my coaching clients the following week, and I said, hey, if I were to record a little bit more training material so that you had some, the bigger questions and answers kind of there, and then we did, this video app and we did this Loom, how would you, I
Mhm.
didn't say I'm going to change your contract, but I said, going forward, I'm thinking about getting rid of the coaching calls because it feels like asynchronously, we're getting pretty much all the questions answered and moving the business along. 3 out of the 4 of them said, the only reason I book the calls is because I pay for them.
Mhm.
I get everything I need from you in a 2-minute video and you respond to me in 30 seconds. When we get on here
Mhm.
for an hour, like I'm kind of just I'm making stuff up to go over. I'm just
Yeah.
filling the time because I paid for the time. And it
Mhm.
hit me of like, wow, how much do we offer out as a deliverable that doesn't directly equal or doesn't have a direct correlation to the transformation that we create? And I think that's a lesson for any business owner. We think the deliverable list has to be 100 for us to be better. Sometimes it needs to be 5, but a great 5. If we can get someone from point A to point B, everybody actually wants more of their time back. Nobody wants
Mhm.
more meetings. We want we want the thing that you promised. So I would challenge people listening to think about that. Challenge the deliveries, the deliverables that you are putting out, and ask yourself and ask your customers, like, are these things actually helping, or are we just doing them because that's what we've always done? So that's been an
Mhm.
interesting thought experiment I've been playing with a lot in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Look, man, let's just be real here for a minute. At one point in time, I had 26 one-to-one coaching clients. I will never do that again. And was the money great? Yes, it was. Literally 8-hour days, just back-to-back calls lined up where you don't have a moment to get up, use the restroom, get some water, stretch your legs. I said, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. And I've made it very. I'm going to change the direction of this conversation here for a bit because I think it's important. You seem like an experienced guy who's had your days of working the 20-hour days, and now you're doing 25 hours a week. That's the goal. I myself doing the same thing as I'm older. Going back similarities again. I owned my last service-based company. I had it for 11 years before I exited, and I said, see you later. And I didn't want to be enslaved to someone, whether it be a client, a business partner, a boss. And I also, like, I'm a parent of multiple kids. Like, I want to go and be present for my kids. And we have the ability here with our businesses and the way that we serve our clients to dictate exactly how we show up and when we show up for our clients, as well as our family and people who love and care for us. So I've been on a mission this year, pretty much since January, to really change the overall model of what I'm doing. And it sounds like you've kind of gone down the same path as well, because you that your passion is traveling and having the ability to get up and go someplace at the drop of a notice, drop of a hat, kind of thing. Uh, and I want to kind of dive in and ask you some questions, like what led you to this mindset shift, because it was definitely a mindset shift before it was a reality for you. What led you to this? What led you to wanting this for yourself?
Great question. So I started working when I was 12. So my father left, my mother was
Mhm.
struggling, and in my mind, I had this idea that I was never going to be a burden. And a lot of things in life are, burdensome. It's a lot of times it's due to money. So I started working when I was 12 illegally, but I was working. And I've
Mhm.
worked, like, I moved out when I was 17. I fully supported myself since then. And my truth was that if it's not hard, it's not real.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people have that, where they have this, overly self-critical view, and they say, "Oh, well, if you build something that's easy to fulfill or doesn't take a lot of time, like, it's not real work. It's not real value. It's not important. It's not whatever word you want to use towards that." And I was able to release that idea in the last couple of years through therapy, through hypnotherapy, through breath work, through a bunch of different stuff. And
Mhm.
that was kind of the thing, right? So because, like, I was always working at a job, and then for the last 12 years I worked for myself, and I've built this thing. But when I look back, every time that I had streamlined and made things easy, I felt guilty, and then I put something in place to make it harder again.
Yeah.
And that was this perpetual self-loathing habit, whatever it was, that I was stuck in for a really, really long time, into my 30s, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that was it. The mindset shift was, if you can create a transformation, a promised transformation that the customer enjoys the experience of, how do you do that in as little time and energy as possible? What does that look like? And so that's what I look at my everyday with. Like, okay, you gotta film some content. How can I make that easier on me? So I have a producer that comes to my house. We sit down, we film. I have people that edit it now. Whereas I used to get on the stupid apps on the phone, and try and, like, make them myself, get frustrated because I suck at editing, and then end up with a
Yeah.
bunch of drafts on my phone, and then, get mad that I hadn't posted in 2 months. And so it's really just giving yourself permission to find the most efficient path home. And that was the structural piece. My motivation
Mhm.
towards it is I actually don't know up until, into my till I was like 32, 33, how much of my life I actually lived for myself.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it was I wanted to be perceived a certain way, and so I will, you know what I mean? Like we have this
Mhm.
standard that we think we need to live up to that nobody's holding us to except ourselves, which is kind of crazy.
Yes.
And so for me, it was I want to play basketball 3 days a week. I want to do jujitsu. I want to climb. I want to travel. And me burning out sitting in front of a computer with a bunch of you know calendar things jammed in the way, like that's not going to cut it. So okay, so how do we then start eliminating? How do we start minimizing that stuff? And so that's kind
Mhm.
of been my mindset is like, how do I simplify, but also how do I keep improving the product, right? How do I keep making it better so that people love it, even when I'm taking away certain pieces of it, right? So then that's like it's a weird battle because a lot of people think more is better, but less
Mhm.
is more if less is awesome. So it's
Mhm.
how do you make what you do and your transformation awesome with less stuff? That's the challenge.
Yeah. I love it, man. And it's very apparent to me, and I think it's apparent to me because I've gone down this path too. But you, sir, have gone heavily into the self work, inner work, self development in order to get yourself to where you are now. And I want to commend you on that because look, it takes one to know one. Um, our path and journey has been a bit differently in different areas of the world we're from. But like I said, I totally understand it. I recognize it, and I support it. And I want to say kudos to you for basically having the balls to go do it because we're also told that that's not the right thing to do. Society wants us to work the 9 to 5 and sit in traffic to work and then home from work because we have to go into the office and all this the bullshit that comes with it. If you ask me, and the older I get, the more that I realize, like, no, that's not for me. And I'm grateful for my time spent in that world because it definitely gave me the perspective needed now at 44, almost 45 years of age.
Yeah.
But I also have realized that that's not what I want from me. And I want to be the one who basically enables or shows my generation of children the different way, the different possibility, the different way we can go out there and live. And
Yeah.
literally, I'm able to do that each and every day because I'm present at home with my kids.
Yeah. That's such an incredible opportunity that is new to this generation of people, right? Like
Mhm.
the internet, Google. This is stuff where like when I was growing, I mean, I remember when the first cell phones were coming out when I was already like when I was in high school. I can't
Yeah.
imagine like now having access to to the iPhone. If I had that, man, if I had
Mhm.
that at 15, 16, it would have been such a crazy difference. And that you're right, there's just so much opportunity out there. There's so much money. And I think knowing how to seek out those opportunities and not the specific thing, but knowing training yourself to be open-minded and curious and go down rabbit holes and test and iterate and not be afraid to fail. That's probably the number
Mhm.
one thing is if you're afraid to fail, none of this is going to be relevant. None of it's going to matter because you're just going to get analysis paralysis and go back to working in that big corporate machine. Not that that's a bad thing. If that's what you're best suited towards, great. I remember growing up, even in school, I was like, I don't understand how to take this information and do anything with it. I was a terrible student.
Yes.
I looked at my parents' life and everybody around my life in terms of like how they worked, and I'm like, I don't get it. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
I never felt connected. I always felt like an outcast from it all. But I had no role model or no real guidance of like what was entrepreneurship. What does
Mhm.
create like I thought there was rules. I thought there was like a textbook you had to go through. Okay, if you're gonna make this product, you have to da 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 da. It's like no, the only rule is be ethical. Otherwise, there's no rules. Do whatever you want. Make something up. If people buy it, they buy it, right? And then if
Yeah.
you've got the ethical piece, you'll obviously want to make sure you're going to deliver something great for your clients, and you're going to work your butt off and make sure that that happens. Even when you do like I did, like in year 3, when we were over committing to stuff, I was working 18 hours. So I was like, we don't have anybody to do the email marketing that we told this guy we were going to do. So it's like,
Yeah.
just burning yourself out, and then learn efficiency. But I think what you're doing for your kids and with your kids is great, where you're at least giving them the vision of what they could have. And a lot of people don't get it. Like, they don't see it. They follow the thing that they're told to follow. And then they wake up when they're 44 and they're like, what am I doing? Why am I here? I'm not happy, So I commend you on, especially, when you have kids, there's obviously more risk. There's more stress around creating your own stuff, right? When shit's going wrong, it's not just you. For me, I don't have any kids, right? 38, if something goes wrong, I have enough money to survive for a while. Like, I don't really care, for
Yeah.
people that are parents and have, people that they're supporting. It's much more complicated, difficult, bigger risk. But, when you stick to it and when you grind your ass off and it pays off, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? It's really important to touch on here, and I'll probably wrap it up with this before we dive in a little bit about your stuff. You and I have built a lifestyle. We survive with it. We still have businesses. We still provide services to clients. We still help people, because that's ultimately what we do. We help people. But it took years, if not decades, for both of us of grinding in order to get us to a place where we are now, where we do the things that we're doing. So for those people who are listening to this, who aren't in the position that we are, who have not and made things happen for them because they haven't put in their work, or they haven't put in the right amount of elbow grease and so on and so forth. Like, yeah, you're going to have to go in there and that for quite a while, probably a lot longer than you think you are. But if you do it, keep going, keep pushing, make it happen. And the way that Mike and I are living, and granted, you're bouncing around from country to country, which I think is awesome.
Fun.
That's difficult for me because I've got 7 kids, and the travel with those little ones.
You need your own plane. You need your own plane for that.
Yeah, we're working on that, sir. We're working on that. But yeah, so dude, awesome. I love to hear the fact that you've gone out there and done the work for yourself, and like I said, once more, I commend you for it. Let's switch gears here for a second. Let's go back to what you're doing and how you're helping people in the sales world. Like, tell me, who's the ideal client? Who do you want to work with? Who do you work best with?
Yeah, I work best, typically speaking, with marketers. As a guy who owned a marketing agency for 11 years, the whole coaching started because people in my ecosystem said, how are you making that much money and working that little? Like, I didn't really understand what I had built at the time, but I had built this machine where I kind of got to sit back and relax and enjoy the ride. Now, my passion for it wasn't there. And so I've kind of exited that for the most part. But what happened is, when people started asking, I started reflecting and going back and saying, okay, well, what is the thing that allows me to be profitable, to not work that much, to have a team? And so ultimately what it comes down to is, you have to understand your customer at a way deeper level than you think you already know them. What you think you know is not enough. And there's exercises and there's ways to understand your customer. When you understand the true value to your customer of what it is that you do, what it is that you deliver, that transformation, you can then elevate the price and make the offer speak to them better. And until you get the price up to the right level, it's very hard to do the other pieces. It's very hard to delegate work. It's very hard to pay for tech to help offset your things. If you're struggling with just charging an hourly fee and it's just you, and you get sick for a week, things burn to the ground. So really, for me, it's understanding your customer to understand the value of what you do so that you can elevate your service offering, get the price where it should be. Then it's, how do I create a natural sales conversation? And I don't want to dive into, there's a couple protocols, like a natural selling protocols with Jeremy Miner stuff. I don't really do that part. What I do is I help people build a framework that feels right for them, because a lot of people are intimidated by sales. A lot of people feel underconfidence. A lot of people feel awkward about asking for money because of their relationship with money, whatever the case may be. But these things show up when we present our offer to people. And so what I do is I will watch sales calls and I will pinpoint the moment. So I analyze how much did you talk versus the other person. I pinpoint how fast did you talk versus the other person. And a number of other things. The way that you answer questions, the way that people's body language changes at the end or beginning of those questions. There's a lot of nuances to it. But what I can ultimately do, my superpower ultimately is the ability to give you a 45-second call, 45-minute call framework to sell your service where the person feels confident with you. They feel like you understand them. They feel like you're the right person for them. Obviously, within that process, you're analyzing, can I actually help? If you can't actually help, then you shouldn't be offering the service. But if all that
Sure.
aligns and that person feels connected with you and trusts you, more often than not, they're going to move forward. So I help people build a framework, not a script, but a framework to extract that based on their personality and the way that they feel the most comfortable presenting their service.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think that's really important. You make some good points there because what I've learned too, just because one sales methodology, sales script, sales process works for one salesperson doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for others. And I ran into that at a bigger coaching mastermind group that I was running a few years back, where we had two sales reps, actually three sales reps who were good. They just made shit happen, and they all did their own little thing. And when they went to train others how to do it like them, others would fumble trying to do it like them for so long until they kind of found their own methodology and groove to get into, and then things would click and start moving forward. So, I think it's an important to put out here, and let me know if you agree with this. But if you have a sales team, if you're training sales reps to come into your organization, give them framework, but don't hold them to every single thing that's in that script. Right. In my opinion here, right? Yeah, give them the
Yeah,
framework.
it's
This is the process for people, but leave some room for them to adapt so it fits their methodology.
absolutely. And I see this especially within the solopreneur community, the small guys, where it's like, okay, I'm the face of it. I made up the product. I used to do the ads. I do all the sales. I actually want to bring on someone to do the sales. There's a very big difference between the pitch of a founder and the pitch of a salesperson. It's a different animal. You can't give them your script or your process. Like, it's going to be more than 50% different than the way you sell when a founder sells
Yeah.
versus when they transition to a salesperson, because you have an emotional connection because you made up the service. And you can speak
Mhm.
from your experience of why you started it because you probably made it because it's something you wish you had. Your salesperson doesn't have that experience, right? They didn't live that thing that you lived. And for them to do the same pitch that you do is an insane concept. Like, it's never going to work. The pitch of somebody that's a salesperson is going to be 50% or more different than the way that a founder's pitch goes. And so there's a big difference
Mhm.
there. And what it challenges you to do as the founder is start to say, okay, my story used to sell the thing. How does my product, how does this service now stand on its own and gain customers? What is it about it
Yeah.
that sets it apart, that makes people want to go forward? Because I can keep selling with my story, and that's fine. It works. But it's an interesting challenge to say, if I were out of it and this were just to be a business that offers this service that creates this transformation, what would it need to, like, what would that conversation need to have? What is it that we uniquely do as a company that would make people attracted to us? And it's actually will change your mind and your brain and the way that you think about your marketing overall, which is really interesting. Because when we're leaning on it being, we're selling the thing that we made up, it's a very easy sale, more so than if the company has to stand on its own and sell itself and not you. So it's a fun exercise, even if you're not outsourcing your sales.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. Sarah, this has been great. I truly appreciate you coming in over here today and spending almost an hour here already on this recording, which I think's great. Um, Tell us, where's the best place to connect with you and learn more about your products and services?
Sure. I'm probably the most active on Instagram or LinkedIn. It's at the Mike Moll, MikeMoll. You'll find me there. It'll be a mix of travel adventure as well as some business stuff. So I like to share my travel journey.
Love it, man. Yeah, I came back from a 2-week bender and not a booze bender. Um,
Uh,
drove out to Salt Lake City from Ellis and then back. So spent 2 weeks there. We had a house there that we were actually closing on, so had to move out all the final pieces. And I think 2 or 3 days ago, drove back here to Texas, and just having the ability to take 2 weeks and drive cross country with the kids and show them those experiences, there's nothing better. So for those of you who are listening, keep grinding, keep doing the work so you can make that a reality for yourself, like Mike and myself have for ourselves. And sir, man, thank you for coming on here. Greatly appreciated. And I hope some people reach out to you and have some conversations with you around how you can help them with their sales, dialing in their operations, their sales operations, and so on and so forth. Thanks again, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Make sure you head over to stepitupentrepreneur.com and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast.